I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by Michael Cohen. We just got the $364 million disgorgement verdict issued by Justice Arthur Engoron. In fact, when you add the 9% interest, that actually does top $400 million or so. People really aren't talking about that. But what people are talking about, what I want to get your take on, Michael Cohen, is in Justice Arthur Engoron's order on page 43 of the order, you are mentioned. Here's what it says. Michael Cohen told the truth. There is a longer paragraph there that talks about your testimony, that you were involved in these conversations with Donald Trump, and it talks about how this fact finder, meaning Justice Arthur Engoron, does not believe that simply pleading guilty to perjury means that you can never tell the truth. Michael Cohen told the truth in Justice Engoron's verdict. Michael Cohen, what's your response?
My response is thank you, Judge Engoron, for including that very important line. Number one, it's going to be very useful as it relates to the upcoming Manhattan District Attorney case. That, of course, is a criminal case. But the one thing that people are continuously forgetting about is what the perjury charge even was. The perjury charge was me accepting the responsibility where I had lied to Congress. What Engoron knows is what that lie is. In fact, so does Donald, so does Alina Habba, so did Chris Kise and Cliff Robert. They knew what the lie was as well. And the lie was the number of times that I claimed to have spoken to Donald about the failed Trump Tower Moscow real estate project. In that statement to Congress, which was worked on by Alan Garten and Ivanka and Jared and Jay Sekulow and Ty Cobb and Abby Lowell, everybody worked on that statement, but I'm the idiot who read it. And I stated 3 times that I spoke to Donald Trump about it, when the truth was I spoke to him about it 10 times. Now, where Engoron is absolutely correct is that, number one, should not preclude somebody, even if the perjured statement was something significant, about telling the truth on something else. In fact, one of the things that Engoron relies upon in this 90-plus page decision is the fact that there is a significant amount of documentary evidence that is exactly as to the way I described it when I was on the bench, when I was in the witness the witness chair. On top of that, not only did the documentary evidence, which should be in and of itself enough, not only does the documentary evidence support my statements, but corroborating statements from other people validate my statements and corroborate my statements. So thank you, Judge Engoron, for acknowledging, that I told the truth. In fact, you know who didn't tell the truth? Donald Trump didn't tell the truth when Judge Engoron actually had him come up on the stand and swear under oath, and he turned, I wasn't talking about your law clerk, I was talking about Michael Cohen. That was a lie in and of itself. But who here is not going to question Donald Trump, lying about something? The guy moves his lips and he's lying.
Also, when it came to Ivanka Trump as well, here's what Justice Engoron said about Ivanka. Quote, she consistently denied recalling the contents of documentary evidence that confirmed that she actively participated in events. Even after she was confronted with the evidence, the court found her inconsistent recall depending on whether she was questioned by the Office of Attorney General or the defense suspect. In any event, what Ms. Trump cannot recall is memorialized in contemporaneous emails and documents. In the absence of her memory, the documents speak for themselves. And obviously, we could go in and talk about how, Ivanka saying she doesn't remember things. We can talk about the hypocrisy there. But what I want to focus on, Cohen, is that the documents speak for themselves. This was a document case. What do the books and records say? And similarly, as we look forward in the next month to the Manhattan District Attorney
I'm not looking
criminal
forward to that, I can assure you.
well,
But
like look forward in the perspective of it will be happening. We're looking forward in the calendar to the trial taking place. It is a document case. You look at the checks, you look at the bank accounts, you look at the signatures, and they tell the facts, they tell the story. I know the kind of MAGAs out there want to just buy into Trump's propaganda, but
and
this
he's
is all
already
about
out there. He's already out there fundraising off of this. I mean, I myself have received at least no less than a dozen of these, Dear Patriot, look what they're doing to me, et cetera, et cetera. Send me $5, $10, $100, whatever it might be. But you know something, Ben, you actually brought up something that it's kind of like a little bit of breaking news here on political beatdown. One of the things that people are not reporting accurately, and it's something that we've talked about on this show, and I have brought this up dozens of times already. While the amount is $350 million, it is not inclusive. And I know that the New York AG's office is sending around notes right now to all of the outlets, the cable outlets and television stations, that people need to get the numbers right. It's not 350. It's not. That does not include the 9% New York statutory interest that exists on it. Now, the one thing that I don't know the answer to, I was always under the impression that they had the ability to go back the 6 years, which would be another $150 million on top. That would bring the amount to over $500 million, something that we had talked about again on Political Beatdown ad nauseum. But that's something that people aren't talking about. They're only talking about the $350 that Donald has to pay, for that Eric has to pay, for that Don Jr. has to pay, and the $1 million that Weisselberg has to pay. None of that includes the statutory interest, which brings the amount to well in excess of $450 million. Again, big numbers. Donald does not have the cash within which to make this payment. How he's going to do it, we already spoke about this before. There's no chance he's going to be able to bond this out with a bonding company. First of all, I can't imagine a bonding company actually has a credit line that would give them the ability to bond a $400 million amount. Second, if in fact that he tries to hypothecate, transfer, sell in order to do this, there's already a receiver in place that's going to be monitoring everything. He doesn't have equity of enough money in the assets in order to cover this default judgment.
So, Michael Cohen, what do you predict he does now? You have the $83.3 million defamation verdict in the E. Jean Carroll case, where Alina Habba was the lawyer there. Alina Habba is the lawyer here. You have this, let's just say, on the low end, $364 million to $450 million verdict here. You add both of those up, and you're approaching, if not exceeding, $500 million, more than $500 million in judgments against him. What does he do?
Well, tell me this, though, before I answer that question. Do you think that if Alina Habba could go back in time, that she would say again, it's better to be pretty than smart? I mean, we're talking about civil judgments now in excess of $500 million. What is Donald going to do? Well, has Donald been able to bond out the $83.3 million second verdict on the E. Jean Carroll case? And I think the answer to that is no. How is he going to then bond out 350, 400, 450, whatever the number may actually turn out to be? And we'll probably get that relatively soon, once we figure out whether it's 1 year on the statutory interest or it goes back to 6 years. Big difference, of course. But this is really big money. He doesn't have it. The assets are going to end up being liquidated, and the balance after the mortgages and taxes will be used in order to offset the judgments. And don't think for a second that to Tish James is just going to accept the properties that are here in New York in order to liquidate them. Once you have a judgment, what you can do, if in fact that the debtor does not have assets in the state or doesn't have assets that can cover the judgment amount, what you do is you then domesticate that judgment in other locales, whether it's national or even international. I've seen people do that. I've seen them successful in domesticating foreign assets. Let's not forget, he has properties, 3 of them overseas, 2 in Ireland and 1 in Scotland. They'll domesticate all of these verdicts, this judgment, and they will get warrants within which to again seize those assets as well. This is as close to a death spiral to a company as you could possibly have.
Let me ask you this final question. There have been statements by Donald Trump that he wants Lara Trump to take over the RNC. She says that she's going to be spending all of that money on Donald Trump. Is that going to go to the campaign? What's your opinion? What's your prediction here? Do you think that one of the reasons that Donald Trump's been talking about having Lara Trump at the RNC, in his own mind, he sees these judgments and he's thinking, I probably need some other source. Maybe it could be the RNC and additional marks?
Well, that, as well as he's going to need a lot of money in terms of advertising and campaigning in order to try to defeat Joe Biden, which he is not successful in raising, believe it or not. What I think Lara stupidly said, and again, as you know, I've called her, stupid in the past, and she is that all of the money that's raised by the RNC is supposed to go to the one and only important race, and that's the race in order to elect Donald Trump to the presidency. That's not what the RNC is about. That's not what people are giving money for. A lot of that money is supposed to go to down ballot races. You have members of Congress that are going to be running very tough races on the Republican side, and the RNC helps them historically in order to ensure that they have a legitimate shot of running against, whether it's an incumbent who already has a well-funded campaign or somebody who's new that has the ability to raise capital on the Democratic side. Many of these races are also primary races where they're running against other Republicans who may be also well-financed. So her statement about, and that's very rare, by the way, just so you know, that they do it in primaries. It's really for Republican versus Democratic ballot. But that's the purpose of the RNC, their capital raise. It's in order to help other politicians win, other Republican politicians win seats that they're going for. Not all of it is supposed to go to just one guy. That's exactly what Donald has in mind for Lara, that all money raised is supposed to go to him, his campaign, and whatever else that they need it for.
Well, Michael Cohen, a good day for justice. There's a lot more work that needs to be done. When I read that order, saw that in there, it was great to see that, that was recognized by Justice Arthur Engoron, and I'm really appreciative of you sharing.
Thank you too. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing it here with us, and of course, co-hosting Political Beatdown. Everybody, make sure you check out Political Beatdown wherever audio podcasts are available. Check out Mea Culpa, the blue one. Search Mea Culpa wherever podcasts are available, and subscribe to the MeidasTouch YouTube channel, and have an excellent day.
Hey, Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.